Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Impractical Machinist podcast. My name is Patrick. Find me on Instagram at JobShopperTN.
And I'm Cameron from Machining is Cool. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating.
I'm Bradley with Marvel Machining. If you're on YouTube, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the Practical Machinist YouTube channel.
On this episode, we're joined by Luke Niels, otherwise known as Crusader Machining. He's the host of the Lathe Lab here on Practical Machinist, and he's been a machinist for over 20 years. He's also the instructor at a community college night school. Today, we're going to find out what it's like to be a lathe guy. Luke, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm very happy to be with you guys today on the podcast. I've been following and watching for a while.
So, for those of you that somehow don't know, as I said, Luke is the host of the Lathe Lab, which is a series on Practical Machinist YouTube channel. And it's one of my favorites. I really enjoy it, Luke. You really do some good videos.
Thank you.
Really helped keep me from turning full millbilly.
Come on, Pat, it's fun.
It's a little late for that.
Well, it is fun, but I mean, I started out as a lathe guy, which explains a few things.
What machines?
A Haas TL2.
That's a little tool room lathe with the open bed, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's not a real lathe.
Yeah, we have those at the college. And it's the only CNC lathes we've had there for years. I'm trying to talk them into getting a real lathe. No offense, Pat.
Oh, no, trust me, I understand. No, I mean, here I've just got a Bridgeport Easy Path. It's not much of a CNC lathe either. And I actually learned a few things from your last video about G&M code. I started out doing hand programming. We didn't have CAM at the time. Kind of nice to have a refresher. You got to have the basics.
Yeah, that's the way I started hand programming a long time ago. But you guys are all a little bit younger than I am. Back in 2005, CAD CAM was very rare. And I actually started on mills. The Haas VF1, VF2, at least my CNC journey was starting out on mills. And I loved it. I miss it to this day. Whenever I have an opportunity to go on a mill, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. Different than the normal daily grind, you know what I mean?
Right.
You have mills in your shop, or is it just all lathes?
We have one mill that we got back in right before COVID because it was a floor model, 50% off. And it's been sitting now for about 2 or 3 months. We have about 2 or 3 jobs that we run on there per year. And when they run for a couple months and then they're done.
So you pretty much do everything you can in the lathe then.
Yep.
Damn.
Yep. When we go back about 15 years or so, or maybe 10, I don't remember. We had the VF2s and the VF1s, and we would run. We had 2 or 3 axis lathes. No, yeah, it was X, Y, Z, or no, X and Z, 2 axis. And then we had to keep doing second and third operations on the mill. And then we got an older Puma that had live tool. No sub spindle, no lower turret, just an upper turret, 1 spindle, a live tool, and it was able to get rid of those second and third operations. So the Haas is sat, and then we got a mill turn, a Doosan TT 1800, and the mill sat. We sold them, and since then, we're turning round parts square.
That's nice.
That's cool, man. See, it's funny. Most of the experience I have with shops in this area is they're very mill heavy. My last job was, I think, 7 mills and 5 lathes, but then we had like 5 mill guys and like 1.5 lathe guys. And then at another shop here that does a lot of production, it's similar. It's like 10 mills and 1 CNC lathe and then a switch lathe. So it's just funny. It doesn't seem like there's all that many shops that are mainly turning. So
Where you live, is there a lot of shops in general?
not really, no.
Yeah, here there's a lot. There's a machine shop right across the street, fab shop across the street. There's probably 25 shops in our town. There's a lot.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of shops up here too, and I know of a couple that are turning only. They might have 1 mill but it's never used. I mean, I send my turning work out to a turning shop, and they won't do any of the mill features on it.
Right.
If they have sub spindles and live tooling, they could probably do it, but usually I'll get it back and I'll have to do the mill features on it.
So why don't you run it on your lathe you have now? It's your
Terrible. I have minimal experience.
really.
I mean, I ran engine lathes for probably 8 years, all manual stuff, but the stuff that I do run on it, I can figure it out, but it's over my head. I don't care to learn. I do 99% of what I do is milling, so I don't even care to bring it in.
Yeah, I don't know where I read that. I think it might have been in the chat that your introduction to our field was what, almost a decade. Was it tool and die or just all manual?
Tool and die, all manual, Bridgeport,
Right.
lathes, grinding.
That that is such a phenomenal way to enter the trade.
Yep.
To do everything manual.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I did it for 8 years. I didn't touch a CNC until my 9th year machining.
And that was still somewhat local to where you're at now.
About 30 minutes south of here.
And if you don't mind me asking, how'd you end up going on your own?
The first shop I worked at, my uncle got me the job, and he just drilled in my head that you need to eventually go on your own. That should be your goal, is start your own shop. So from day one, it was always in my head. So every shop I went to, I learned as much as I could with the goal of going on my own.
Yeah, that's cool. I started on Brown and Sharps. Do you guys know what that are? Cam driven screw machines.
Yep.
Yeah, that was with my uncle. Actually, funny, similar to yours, and he never said that to me. He was kind of old school, but those were, I mean, they were fun, but you don't learn anything near what you would doing everything manual, how you did.
Yep. Them cam driven screw machines are crazy though.
Yeah.
You guys do your own cams?
Yep, my grandfather would cut them. He taught my uncle, and yeah, excuse me, they actually my grandmother bought my grandfather a cam cutting machine, like for their anniversary or something.
That's awesome.
And he'd cut his own cams, and some of the cycle times that we would run back then were 7-8 seconds, and he'd want to get it down to 6 or 7. So he'd spend a half a day cutting cams to try to vary. The way the cam would work, everything was form tools or box tools for turning. So the lobes on a cam would determine where your tool rapids to.
Yep.
And then your feed rate is a different lobe on a cam.
Yep.
So he'd take the cam off, trim it down a little bit so he'd rapid closer to the part just to save 1 second.
Yeah.
Like, man,
that's
that's
crazy.
totally-
It was probably about 5-6 years ago. There was a local shop for sale, and that's all they had was cam driven screw machines. They had like 12. And I talked to him for a few weeks, and I really thought about buying the company from him, but it seemed so outdated to me. But he had a lot of business going through there.
Yeah, there's a couple shops out here that are still all Brown and Sharp.
Really?
Yeah, but how many shops are like that in the United States?
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing what all you guys do on your CNC, like watching your guys' channel and everything on the Practical Machinist channel, there's no way that you can compete with the complexity of parts.
Yeah. And even if you get close, how much time did you spend grinding cams and doing a whole bunch of manual work just to get a good part?
Yeah,
Fixturing for your second and
Right.
third and fourth and fifth operations.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking, it wasn't long ago, the three of us were talking about like time sinks in a machine shop and how it's easy to spend, 30 minutes trying to save 5 on a part,
Right.
in programming time. And we're sitting here talking about spending half a day remachining a cam to save a second on a part. That's mind blowing.
But you got to think though, them screw machines are probably pumping out 100,000 parts.
Exactly right.
For that 1 second. It's no different than trying to save 30 seconds on a 30-minute part.
We had
thousands of them.
Yeah, we had some orders that would run on a machine for months.
Yep.
10 hours a day minimum for months.
Yep.
So saving that 1 second on an 8-second part, like what you said, 100,000 pieces, do the math, that's time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know one of the machines that the guy had running, he had been running the same part on that machine for like 12 years. He said it never stops running.
Wow.
It was a
Holy
blanket order. He would pump out, I think, like 50,000 parts a month and ship them.
That's crazy.
That's when your machine turns into an ATM.
Yep.
Yeah.
True. I remember, not to get sidetracked, but I remember reading a story on the forum. I think it was from Frank Mari, the owner of Martool. And he was talking about before he opened his business and everything, he worked in like a Swiss and screw machine shop. And the work he was doing, it was on these little brass components of some kind. He said the profit margin on those parts was so small that the only profit they made was in the brass scrap.
I've
Get
read that
outta
too.
here.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy to me, but I get it. You know, if you're making a part in 5 seconds, there ain't a whole lot of shop value in that. That's crazy.
Yeah, they somehow
is.
calculated in the waste into the
Mhm.
quote to make money off of it.
Do you guys ever do that? Calculate the waste?
No.
No. Goodness, no.
Same.
No.
I was getting to a point where I was sick of bringing my chips to a place myself, wasting 2 hours doing it. I actually had my garbage company bring me a big dumpster, and I was gonna just throw them away because I was sick of doing it.
Really?
Yeah. But I ended up finding a company locally that brings me bins, and when they're full, they come swap them for me. So I just send them a text, and they show up in like 2 hours.
That's
So,
That's
and I
nice.
and then
get like a
they
$600 check a month.
as I was gonna say, then they mail you a check afterward.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you separate the coolant from your chips?
I don't anymore. I used to.
Right.
Which I'm starting to think about doing it again because I feel like I'm going through so much coolant now.
Yeah.
They
What
give
do
me
you-
leak-proof bins. What I used to use was the IBC totes, and the day before they'd come, I'd lift them up on my forklift and open the valve and take all the coolant back out.
What's an IVC tote?
It's a big water tote. It's got a drain at the bottom.
Like the 300-gallon
Yep.
plastic tubs, like with
The
the
big-
metal around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some of them also.
Yep.
On your machines that you run, like for us, it's so difficult to try to separate the coolant. Like we did, some shops spin them, but we're not that big to get like a shop spinner, have a dedicated person doing it. We've been trying to figure out to do that because the same thing, we're going through so much coolant.
Yeah. I know they make there's a couple companies out there. Do you have the big totes that you put your chips in?
Yeah, we wanted to buy a bunch, but they were so expensive. Our scrap company that we sell our scrap to, they're also a junkyard.
Ah.
And they somehow got like 100 of them. And so he said, "Hey, we'll just bring you, 10 of them a month or whatever." So I'm like, man, that saved us thousands of dollars.
They do make these. I don't know what company makes them, but you can put them in your bin, and they kind of got a filter on the bottom, so you can stick a vacuum in the corner of it and suck the coolant out.
That's a good idea.
Seen people use perforated steel and just make one.
Yep.
Just bend it so it's got 3 sides and drop it down in there and weld it to the wall.
Yep.
So then you can stick all the coolant will obviously make it from the chips into that little area inside of there. So you stick your vacuum in it. Same concept.
I think Kenny has one.
That's a
I
good
think
idea.
it might be from Swarf. You set it in the bin before you start filling it with chips.
Yeah, they've got just drop-in
Yeah.
deals where you can just drop it in whatever container you have.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
We don't do near enough volume here to even worry about that.
So I usually go through like a 55-gallon drum of coolant every probably 18, 24 months, but now I'm hitting that 12-month range where I'm kind of like, shit, maybe I should start trying to get some of my coolant back before I send it up.
It's expensive.
He sends me, when I get my check, he sends me what he pulls off for coolant, and it's usually probably 30 to 40 gallons of coolant that he's taken out. So I'm losing that in a month.
Yeah.
Right.
That's about enough to fill a whole machine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you guys use for coolant? What kind?
We use Castrol MB50.
Yeah.
Same.
We use Qualichem 251C.
About the same thing.
Yeah, both the same thing. Pat, what do you use, Pat?
about it.
No, I mean, we use MB50 here.
Oh, okay, you do.
But at my last job, we used MB50 for a while, and then the supplier that we were using, some things happened. They couldn't get Castrol anymore, and someone from Qualichem said, "Hey, 251C is the same product.
Really
You can actually just add it straight to already mixed MB50."
interesting. I really like it. I
Oh,
don't
yeah,
have any
great.
out of it. It lasts a long time. I always get good finishes, good tool life. I've never had tool life issues because of coolant,
No,
as far as I can tell.
I used the clear coolant for a long
Man.
time, and I switched to MB50 about 2 years ago, and it's been great.
Yeah.
And the barrels are affordable. They're not. I
Mhm.
mean, I think I pay like 1,900 for a barrel.
Yeah, we're right around $2,000 for 251C
Yep.
for a barrel.
What
That's
do
a
you
lot.
what do
We
you
spent
use,
like
Luke?
$700.
What do you use
Really?
then?
Well, it's a local.
Oh.
We did use Qualichem. We did use MB50. That we used to use Steiner as our distributor for around here, and then the sales rep was telling our local competition who our customers were.
Hmm.
So then I said, you know what, we're not going to buy it. We use a lot of coolant, and then so I said, you know, we can't buy from you anymore. I tried buying Hysol MB50. That's what it is, right? The Castrol Hysol MB50.
Yep.
And then no other distributor would sell it. It was just Steiner that had it, or at least around us, you know?
Yep.
So then I went to a local guy that I know. It's not as good. It's definitely not as good as the Qualichem or the Hysol MB50, but a lot less expensive. It's local. They're a local shop. They got it. They're about 10,000 square feet. They manufacture it all in house. They don't stock really anything. So the lead time sometimes can be a week and a half,
Wow.
but it's cheaper and it's all local. So we're in the western suburbs, and if you guys ever heard of a city called West Chicago, they're right there, and that's north of us about 8 miles. So I just hop in the truck, go pick up a barrel of Waylube or whatever I need, and then the price is there. But it is not as that Hysol MB50. That stuff is magic.
Yeah. I got a
good.
reseller that's like 20 minutes from me, and I can just pop in and grab a barrel anytime. It's great.
Of
Yeah, that
course you
should be
do.
good.
Sounds about right for Brad.
Yeah.
Hey,
He's got everything he could ever need 20 minutes from.
I'm struggling to find a 3/8/16
Good.
5-inch bolt today.
Fuck you.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's
Get some hard pop
3/8/16.
out in the
That's
middle of
pretty
nowhere.
uncommon.
I read about that in the chat. That you got. What is that all about? Like you guys were going back and forth, and I'm like 3/8/16. That's about as common as can be.
Oh,
Yeah.
Pat's last company doesn't know how to thread her half
Well-
3/8/16 hole.
Oh, I guess I have to actually tell that story now. Let me try to keep it
when
brief.
Possum was on here.
Well, all right. So we made some parts for Possum Solutions at my last job, and they had a 3/8/16 tapped hole on one end, a 3/8 male thread on the other, and we made them. I didn't make them; another operator made them. And of course, we didn't have any actual gauges to check anything with, so they were using nuts, bolts, and each part. And Possum gets them, and they don't fit his stuff. He
Ooh.
starts checking them with gauges that he has, because the guy that has a hobby that got out of control actually has gauges.
And Pat bent.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't gauge right. So plus they're dinged up and whatnot. So he kicks them back, and I recommended that he kick them back because I wasn't happy about it. And it just became a huge ordeal. I mean, it was hilarious,
Right.
from the outside looking in, but yeah, it just, a shop not being able to make, a 3/8/16. It's just a lack of quality control. It's really what it was.
3/8/16 is his kryptonite.
Right.
Yeah,
And
apparently.
yeah. Oh, no, and the
But-
bad thing is every time I see a 3/8/16, tap or something now, it's like, oh boy, let's see how this goes.
Right. But they were probably using like 1A and 1B mating parts, right?
No, they were using bolts.
That's what I'm saying, like a 1A
Oh.
bolt.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's no
Because if you
telling.
were to go to McMaster and buy a 3/8/16 machine screw or a bolt, nut, whatever, they're all probably 1A. So
Right.
it's just that real loose tolerance.
Yep.
I think
I was annoyed about it enough that I kind of stepped outside my station and I sent our ordering lady a set of ring gauges and plug gauges to order because, like, that's just sad.
Did they order them?
Yes.
it is nice.
So that's the only thread gauge that shop has now.
Yeah.
I mean,
They have
They
a
don't
few.
in the drawer somewhere never used. I'm just kidding.
They have an 1 3/8 5 Acme thread gauge.
Wow. Forgot that one. So that's actually an interesting question. What do you guys do do you guys buy thread rings, thread plugs for every thread that you make?
No. Sometimes I make 'em.
I have
I
I have all the thread plugs. I have just about every size. Over the years, I just buy them when I see them or if I need them. I have
Yeah.
thread plugs for sizes I don't even have taps for.
but
Yeah.
Especially
then-
with you can hop on like Haas and they're $18. Like
Good cheap.
you buy a new one every year.
you guys ever shop on eBay?
Yep.
Yeah,
Little
man, eBay over this past year, our shop, we've been a little since COVID, we've been flat. Not slow, not down, not up, but um eBay has been, so that being said, trying to find a way to, trim the fat somewhere. And one of those ways, man, is eBay. And we're able to I found a supplier, I can't remember his name on eBay, that he's actually from, I believe, Minnesota. And they started out as a job shop. I talked to the guy on the phone. I bought so many gauges from him. They started out as a job shop back in the 80s. And lately, what their business has moved into is a calibration house. There was such a need for used gauges. So what he does is he'll go buy a closing shop or somewhere on auction, a box full of gauges,
Nice.
calibrate the good ones, list them, and the bad ones, he'll list them as defective.
Is that M&J Tooling?
I believe it is. Yeah, I believe it is Emmett.
Yeah.
I buy a lot from them.
Yeah.
I need to remember that.
They have
are, yeah.
you may have every odd size you could think of. Like it's
So many weird pre-plate. I mean,
Damn.
and
I'm
you
definitely
have
gonna check
talked to
that
them on
out.
the phone a few times too. I ordered a thread gauge and it was my fault. I missed whatever color it was, but it didn't fit. Like I threaded a hole, tried to use it, and it was tight, and I flipped it and it was tight. The go wouldn't go, the no go wouldn't go. I loosened it up as hell. The go went, the no go went. I was like, what the fuck? So I ordered a brand new OSG and it worked perfectly. So I did a return. I said it doesn't work, and he called me and he laid everything out for me. He said, this is why, this gauge is this, your gauge is this. There was like one number that was different, but he's
on the pitch.
yeah. And he still took it back. He said, I'll take it back. I said, I'll keep it. It was my mistake. He said, no, I think I'll take it back because somebody might need it. And if you keep it, it's going to sit in your drawer for 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's good. That's good.
Wow. That's
You know,
cool.
I need to check that out because there's plenty of times where we run some random size, thread mill like a 4-inch thread or something.
Yep.
And you're not going to buy a gauge for that one
Right.
thread. Yeah, a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but occasionally when we run into that situation, we'll just make a thread gauge
So
ourselves.
when you make it, how do you verify your pitch?
Just thread it on the lathe, hook the lathes right. It depends on the part too. Like we're not gonna depends on how critical that thread is,
Right.
If it's literally just some utility shit that the things need to thread together when they show up, then we're fine with that. Now if it's something critical, then it's worth spending the money on the gauge. But
you 3-pin check it when you make it.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. We have thread triangles, thread mics. We kind of bounce between everything we have just to make sure everything's reading the same.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your background in machining?
Mine?
Yeah.
I got into it in 2020, right before COVID started. Used to work on aircrafts and then moved back to Georgia. Got tired of working on aircraft, wanted to do something new, and saw machining videos on YouTube. Thought it was cool. It was actually all I ever saw was manual machining videos. So I was ready to go do some manual machining. We moved to the town we're in now, like a month before New Year's. And at a New Year's, like they shut the whole main street down on New Year's. So everybody's out there hanging out that did their own ball drop. Ran into some random dude, started talking to him, asked what I did, and I was like, I don't know. I just moved here. My wife's got a job at the hospital. I used to work on aircraft. I'm thinking about getting into machining. And he's like, oh, I actually know a couple machinists. I was like, all right, no shit, cool. Are they hiring? He's like, yeah, one of them is. So I think the next week I went down there, walked in, they hired me off the street.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a shop. I think they had about 50 machines. Um, I wasn't crazy about it. Nobody really, I'm showing up off the street, getting into machining, right? It was all CNC machining. Pretty much no training. They don't provide any training. They stuck me in front of a machine. We're like, hey, this one's already set up, ready to run, so just keep swapping parts. I was like,
All right.
all right. What does that mean? They're like, if you have any questions, just ask somebody around you. I was okay. Well, I guess I'll do that. And so, I finished that operation out, and then there's a guy next to me. I was on like a little sharp mill, and then there's a guy next to me running a DMU 50. I'm like, hey, and like complex shit, he's balls deep in the middle of all this stuff. Like, hey, I'm done. What do I do now? He's like, oh, well, we need to set up whatever job's next. I was like, all right. So how do I do that? And then like I would just basically get like piece by piece from everybody that I would talk to on like how to actually do the next thing, how to even load a program. I mean, it's all FANUC, so loading the program is not a self-explanatory thing. And then how to use an edge finder, how to touch all your tools off. We touch them all. There's no tool setters or anything like that. Basically, just touch them all off on top of your stock and run it like that, and retouch them off every single operation. But yeah, so just kept on struggle busting through that. Then they stuck me on nights about 3 weeks in, and I was on nights with like 4 other dudes, and I was just Googling how to do this shit pretty much because I wasn't getting much help from anybody. So I was winging it, Googling it, finding a lot of extra material around the shop because I kept screwing up. And then about after about 4 months of being there, I was getting sick of it because I was like, I showed up ready to work. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be as best as I could be. And everybody else there was just kind of punching the clock, didn't really care. They weren't at the same level that I was as far as willingness to be good.
Right.
So I felt like I was kind of spinning my wheels there, and the place was kind of disorganized too. It was pretty difficult to even find the tools you needed to set up a job. So
That sucks.
that was infuriating. So anyway, the other guy that guy from New Year's knew actually called me out of the blue and was like, hey, you still looking for a job? And I was like, actually, yeah, now I am. And so I went up and checked his shop out, small family run shop, 6 machines, and then some manual equipment and some fabrication stuff. And then, so I started there, and I've been there since. Now I'm manager, I guess. You would
Oh,
call it.
really?
Yeah.
So you moved up from not knowing really
Yeah.
anything.
Well, the nice thing about where I'm at now, so like I said, it's a family shop. So I literally work with the owner every day. He's out there on the shop floor with me. He's doing his thing. I'm doing my thing. And less so now because he's got a lot going on. But back when I first started, it was literally me and him on the shop floor every day working. And so he's not micromanaging or anything like that. He pretty much was hands off. Like, all right, well, tell me when you need help with something. I was like, all right, cool. So I'll try to figure things out, let him know when I needed help, and kind of work from there. And then he isn't going to hold me back. I was like, hey, I want to get into programming. I downloaded Fusion and started learning how to use it. Check this out. And he's like, all right, cool. Well, I guess you can start doing some programming. And then bought me a laptop, bought me a seat of Fusion. Then I started programming some stuff. I started programming outside of work for a job that I would do at work because it would take me forever. And then it would come into work, set up, run the part. It would work. I'm like, all right, cool. So I programmed this whole thing start to finish. We're making parts now, and it progressed from there. But
Hell yeah. That's a success story there. But there's
yeah,
a lot of people in shops I see that are like that they
yeah,
don't care about the trade.
I
They
know.
don't want to show.
And it drives me nuts. So I came from, so I was in the Marine Corps before getting into machining. And whenever somebody shows up to the fleet, whenever you've got some experience, it's your job to teach the new guys. So what I was used to was people showing up to the fleet. They've already been in for a year, went through boot camp, went through combat training, went through job school, all this stuff. And then there's also, the whole respect thing. Like, you're at least going to respect the rank of nothing else. So if somebody tells you to do something, they're talking to you, you shut up, look at them, pay attention, and learn. Because if they teach you something and you forget it or you screw up, it's your ass, right? And if you screw it bad enough, somebody could die. You don't know. You could crash an aircraft full of 26 people. So I'm used to that. And then I got into like machining. Nobody is like that. If anybody is like that, they're few and far between. It's hard to find those people that are like, they're going to shut up, pay attention, learn everything you can teach them. And so I was expecting that whenever I showed up to that first shop, because that was my first like real job outside of the military. And yeah, I was pretty let down because I was like, nobody here gives a fuck about anything. Like I'm trying to learn so that I can make it, actually provide something here and actually be useful around the shop and help you guys out. And nobody gives a shit. So it's also with hiring employees. Same thing. I mean, it took me a little while of hiring people and being let down by it to figure out, okay, people aren't going to care the way that I'm used to them caring. So
Yeah, we're trying to hire now. What I've noticed for 2 years is I have a 75% rate of people not even showing up to the interview, man.
it's crazy.
It's like when I was a kid, if you wanted a job, you would walk around and knock on doors. And, if you wanted a job and you got an interview, boy, you better show up, man, or there's a 0% chance you're going to get that fucking job.
Yep.
And now and that's one of the reasons I wanted to start teaching was I saw a lot of people in our field, like you said, they don't give a shit, man. And maybe I take it a little bit too far, but I absolutely love what I do. I'm blessed, and I'm sure you guys are look at what you guys are doing. You're taking your field and your career to the next level where you're doing a podcast and contribute. I think the four of us all equally love what we do. Maybe in different facets, but
I don't love turning.
Yeah.
But I mean, you guys are all excellent at what you do to work practical machinists. Look, you're working for them now in addition to your job. And I was seeing there was such a lack of that in our field. And there was no young people. Now there's a lot more young people want to do it because of YouTube. But when I was starting, man, I was the youngest guy in the shop. And even back then, no one cared.
Yeah, I was the youngest guy in the shop for probably the first 10 years. Like the next oldest person was like 15 years. They could be my dad.
Right.
Like it was weird working at so many shops. I'd be sitting there at lunch and it's like, oh man, I'm gonna go party tonight. You guys are like taking care of kids.
Right, or going to the old folks' home, take a nap.
But the last like 10 years now, it's kind of been a shift where it's like, I feel like I'm like the old guy. I'm like, oh shit, man, I'm older than everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Luke must feel like a grandpa.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do.
Golly.
And I'm glad that you guys point that out, that I'm like freaking grandpa.
Yeah.
And same with one of the group chats, I told everyone how old I was, like, oh, wow, you're old. You're 42. Are you the oldest one around?
Funny thing is, like, I don't think a 42 is old,
No.
but I immediately got to give somebody shit for being over 40.
I'm not even proud of you guys when I turn 40.
It feels like the right thing to do.
Yeah,
But in
you call me
reality,
grandpa.
yeah, in reality, I'd say you're doing better than the majority of people, regardless of what age they are.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, just look at those guns, man. That's actually let's shoot in a question real quick here from our friend Ian Sandusky. He wanted us to ask, why are your arms bigger than mine and can you knock it off?
Steroids.
Oh no.
A heavy dose of illegal anabolic steroids.
Oh yeah.
Oh my. So let's take everything back a step, Luke. How did you get into machining? What led you down this path?
It was a unintended lifestyle. My paternal grandfather learned machining, from what I understand, from his uncle. And when he dropped out of school in I think the 6th grade, he lived on the north side of Chicago, and he would travel down to the south side, I believe by bus, and work at a machine shop when he was like 14 or 15. And then he did that forever. So naturally, his sons, my father and my uncle, both got into it at a young age. 18, fresh out of high school. My uncle never graduated high school, but my dad did, and they went right into the trades. And then they started a shop in the 80s when I was a young boy, and my mom would bring me in there. It was a small shop, cam-driven screw machines. My mom would bring me in there when I was a year old. So me and my older brother grew up in a shop. The first time I turned the handles on a Bridgeport, I was probably 5, just standing there by my dad, and I wasn't machining, but he was, and I was just turning the handles, and then it developed from there. I mean, I worked with them, excuse me, summers, and then when I finished high school, it was, you're going to the shop to work. So I worked there for a couple of years, worked at a couple different shops, but it's been in my blood. My brothers were machinists. My cousins worked in a machine shop. My uncles, my maternal grandfather was a machinist also, but different. He was a machinist mate in the Marine Corps during the Korean War. Worked in a machine shop on I don't know the proper nomenclature, a battleship or something.
Mhm.
And then he took a different route where my dad's side of the family was kind of, you'd say, more blue collar, whereas my mom's grandpa actually went to college. He was an engineer, but with like a machining background. And then it's just all I've ever done. It's all we've ever done. I work with my dad now.
Hmm.
My brother's a machinist still, but he's in LA machining. And my cousin works here with us, with me and my dad.
Oh, so your dad still works there with you?
Yeah, I mean, he literally is a grandpa. He's 70. He doesn't really get on machines anymore, but yeah, we've been machining I'm the fourth generation, technically. My
Yep.
grandpa was taught by his uncle, my great uncle, I guess you could say, whatever, but he's obviously long since passed, and they did that over in Poland, which,
Okay.
and I've tried to find out how. It's like at that time it was communist.
Right.
I don't know how you even do anything, but they came over here for that reason, for economic, or to get away from the throes of communism.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Wow,
then
man.
my grandpa taught my dad and my uncle, and whatever.
So you really have like a almost a family dynasty in machining. If you go back one step farther, you're into blacksmithing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great, man.
And
Wow.
then my sons, I don't know if they want to do it. My oldest boy, he just got into the Carpenters Union. He worked here for years, and he just graduated high school a couple weeks ago. And he's like, you know what, Dad? I'm not going to take the machining route. I'm going to be a carpenter. I'm like, dude, the first tradesman in our family that's not a machine. I mean, there's loads of them, a dozen or more machinists. And he wanted to be a carpenter.
Yeah.
You may make me
Same.
Mac.
Yeah.
That's what I told him.
I mean, I don't push it on my kids. My oldest will be 17 in a few weeks, and he doesn't show any interest, so I don't push it. And I mean, he wants to go into a trade, and I told him, I said, go into HVAC or plumbing or electrician. I said, if you come back to this, great, it is what it is, but I don't want to push it on him. I want him to
Yeah.
find his own path.
Same.
Mhm.
'Cause it's
Same.
like you said earlier, like you gotta love what you do in this industry to do well. Like
Right.
I enjoy it every day, and I don't think my kid would enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right. Mine sure did not. He was operating, and we went over some setup, but it's like he was 16, 17 at the time. He was not thinking about depth of cut on a turning
No.
tool and what surface footage to run at 17.
It always amazes me. I've worked with some people that they also had a shop at home, and their kids were working with them from like 13 to 17, and they loved it. But like my kid,
Right.
I get him in here. I mean, I've had him do some stuff, and I walk in here, and he's just staring at his phone. Like, what are you doing? Like, pay attention to what you're doing.
I know.
So it's like I don't want to push it on him because he doesn't enjoy it.
Same. Yeah, I'm my boy that's going to the Carpenters Union. I'm happy for him. He didn't want to go to college at all. Couldn't wait to graduate.
Yep.
And he just wanted to get into the trades, and and I'm very happy for him. And my other son who's 15, he does work here a couple days out of the week. Same thing, on a phone. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, just standing there, machine is running, sitting on texting or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's the same. He's like, I'm going to go to the electrical union. Like, don't you want to work with Dad? No, not really. But at the same thing, I'm not going to push it.
Yeah.
Let them find their path and, do their own thing.
Yep.
I'm sure your whole family's gonna give them an endless amount of shit
Oh, yeah.
for going to be carpenters and electricians.
Oh, yeah.
They couldn't handle the pressure of machining, so they decided to work with wood
Mhm.
or electric.
That metal
For
hard.
starters, they couldn't cut it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
I'm going
couldn't
to tell
cut
them
it.
that. That's some of the family say, you know what? I realized what it was. You couldn't cut it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Couldn't handle it.
Couldn't cut it. Now they can handle your shop improvements. They can build out a new room or run wire into a new machine for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get it
They
from
couldn't
Hurt
cut
Creative Farm.
machine.
Then once they're done, they can get out of the way and the real work can get done.
Yeah, I'm going to tell them that. Exactly that.
You should get them some shirts made that says tolerances, couldn't cut it, had to be a carpenter.
I'm going to 100%.
Oh my goodness. That's funny. So if you would, Luke, I guess share the progression from, you started in the trade because your family background. What led you up to where you're at now? And what do you do now? Do you own your business?
Yeah, so like we had said before, I started out on cam-driven screw machines, Brown and Sharps, 2G and double aught when I was about 18 up until 20.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I was 20, I went off, worked at a couple other shops, hit so a little bit of manual, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then around, I'd say 2008 or 9, when I was about 25, I came back to the shop. So it's kind of a weird dynamic. The shop that we run now with my dad, we're a small to medium-sized job shop. The name of that shop is Progressive Turnings. The Crusader machining was started with more of not high volume production runs, but also more of the teaching aspect of it and social media aspect of it. For the company that we have, the job shop, there's a lot of NDAs that we have, and a lot of the work we can't film, put out pictures, can't talk about it. A lot of we are not aerospace certified, but a lot of that work is AS 9100 work, a third or fourth tier supplier.
Wow.
But what we really wanted to make an emphasis on is teaching, showing, and there's a lot of plans that we have in place now that we wanted to have it two separate entities, where the high volume production run was over here. This other aspect, more of teaching, social media, is Crusader machining. And there's there's a lot of stuff that we have in the works now is relating to resources for that next generation that we're going to be partnering with a couple local vocational programs for that. So what I do is, aside from being a very popular YouTuber, day-to-day programming, setting up, running machines, the normal grind, which I prefer that. Being here in the office, it's not my thing at all.
Sure.
Doing quotes and all the administrative stuff that has to be done. I'd rather be on the machine.
Yep.
That's my thing. I don't do really a lot of programming anymore. The whole fusion is, I know how to program, but I have a guy here that we had trained for several years on how to program that does basically 90% of it. And I work with him. He's got 10 years on the job. He's a great guy. And I work with them as far as optimizing tools, laying out the job, what should do what on what side, what operations. And I do a lot of setting up. I set up the jobs here that no one wants to. Like the one we were talking about. It's an aerospace job that I can't really show a lot of. It's that 13/8 stainless, and I've been battling it for about a week.
Yeah.
Ooh. You struggling with tool life or what, Luke?
Mostly tool life. I can't get through two parts without destroying my inserts.
Damn.
Ooh.
And keep in mind, 2 parts, my cycle time is 6 minutes.
Whoa.
So
Yeah. That's not
Go
a lot
ahead.
of time.
about every 10 minutes, I'm having to change a bunch of tools. But I have a rep coming in hopefully Tuesday to help me out with that. I worked with. I don't know if we can say brands of tools here, right?
Sure.
Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
using something.
So I got a recommendation from Sandvik, and they recommend 13. Do you guys use a lot of Sandvik?
No.
No.
Same. I don't. Mostly I use this car.
But I do remember at IMTS, Sandvik has a lot of turning for hard material. Like they specialize in that, don't they?
Yeah. And we got what they recommended like 3 different geometries and grades. I got the one that I could get in next day, and it did better. They said that I would get about 13 parts an inch. I got like 4,
Yeah.
which is not bad, but I got to get one of the reps in here to figure out why.
Do you think your coolant is having an impact?
It might. It's funny you say that. I was thinking that this morning.
You want me to send you a barrel MB50?
Yeah, send me a complimentary barrel.
I'll send you one. You send me your address.
But it might be the coolant. And that do you guys ever machine harder stainless?
No.
Very, very rarely.
I
Yeah.
ran. Oh, I'm not even gonna remember what it is now. I ran something that was hard. It was. Do you remember what it was, Cam?
Yeah, I don't remember what the material was,
I don't even.
but I remember you talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was my inserts were. They weren't lasting long, and I wasn't even taking much off. I was taking skim cuts. I was just skimming some engraving off parts.
Have you tried ceramic inserts, Luke?
I have not.
No.
I may. I mean the rep is coming in here Tuesday with a couple of ideas.
Yeah.
And the total runtime on the job I'd say is about 250 hours.
Yeah.
So
You're
it'll be
only in
worth it.
6 minutes out of insert. Damn.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
What's the hardness of that material?
I don't know. I mean, it's got to be under 30. It's not.
Is it more abrasive than hard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like gummy. It's.
You said
I posted
13.8, right?
on my story on Instagram what the drill sounded like. Pat, remember you commented the sound is like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I hated it.
Horrible. That's a lot of what I do on the daily basis. Aside from training, we've got a couple setup people here that are training to advance themselves. I work with them on setup, job scheduling.
Yeah.
A lot of the program that I do, I prefer to hand program. Some of our parts are very simple. Feed out, drill, face, rough turn, finish bore, ID groove, cut off. By the time I dump that into Fusion, draw the model, program it, I'll have the geometry written. And
Yeah. It seems like conversational at a lathe makes more sense more often than conversational at a mill.
yeah, for sure. I've never used conversational. I didn't even actually know our machines had it until someone sent me a DM saying, "Oh, how do you like the conversation?" I'm thinking, we didn't buy that upgrade. He goes, "No, they're standard."
Huh.
And you're like, I would
Yeah.
talk to my machine.
When I'm in this job, I don't want to talk to anyone.
Being able to hand program all that's pretty impressive. But seeing the conversational side of things where I believe you can drop a DXF in there of the profile of your part if you already have it. And then
Really?
yeah, and you tell the machine what your tools are and everything, and they stay loaded in there. I believe you build out your tools in the machine or in the control, so it knows what tools you have in what positions, and then you can tell it what kind of operation you want to do. So a rough turning, and then it'll rough turn, and you tell it how far back to go, whatever your depths of cut are going to be, and then you can tell it to profile all that stuff. I haven't done it myself, so I could be wrong on some of that, but I've seen it, and I believe that's how it works. It depends on what machine too.
Right. Well, ours are the Doosan, or what they call DN. I guess they changed the name to DN Solutions.
Yeah.
And we got a couple of those larger, the TT 1800. But one of the guys that was DMing me said they do have a very intuitive conversational.
Yeah. No, I haven't used what do they call that? Because I've seen it on the mills. I
like-
played with it.
Is it like the manual guide eye? Or is that the old school version?
No, I
Yeah.
didn't. I remember seeing that term, manual guide eye.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Mm.
No, it's a easy guide.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
Easy guide I think might be what it is.
Yeah, easy guide. Conversation.
But if you hit custom 1 on the control, I believe it takes you to a page that has a whole bunch of random stuff you can select.
On the Doosan? So you're familiar with that control?
Yeah. Now, I haven't done any I haven't messed with the Conversational at all on our Doosan lathe, but we also have all Doosan mills. And
The
so,
newer ones?
our oldest one is a 2013. and
What
then our
color? What color is it? White or blue?
blue.
Okay, then it's the new ones. Before that, they were white or gray.
Yeah, and then not long before that, they were still Daewoo.
Right, yeah, they will, yep.
Yeah. No, our oldest one's a 2013. We actually just got rid of a 2012 last year and bought a new one. But
Custom one?
yeah, I believe the custom 1 button will take you to that.
I'm going to check that out for sure. At least just to
Yeah.
learn it.
Wait with the custom 1, custom 2 button, and you can change it. You can actually change what the control looks like. So on our 2013, I don't know if you can do it, but we've got a 2018, and it came with that on there, like the easy guide that I was talking about. But I believe you go custom 1, then there's a soft key at the bottom that'll say like easy guide or easy eye, and you hit that, and it'll change to the newer side of the FANUC control. Or maybe it's specific to Doosan, I'm not really sure, but it basically, you'll go back and it won't be like that classic FANUC look anymore. It'll look a little bit different. And then I would have to be in front of the machine to tell you how to get there, but you can get to the Conversational once you're on that new side. And
I'm
then
gonna
you can
check that out.
yeah.
Yeah,
can-
we don't use
can
that
find
control nearly with the potential. There's so much to the
Yeah.
new.
No, we don't either.
Mm-mm.
So
Have
you guys have lathes at your shop?
Yeah, we've got two axis lathes, no sub spindle or anything, just tailstock 2 axis, no live tooling.
Do you
They-
you work on them or are you only on the mill?
I do both. I'm
Oh,
majority on the mill.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Sam handles the majority of the lathe work, but I still do some here and there, and then whenever he's gone, I handle it all. But yeah, they're basic. We got a Johnford SL300, little 8-inch chuck. I don't remember what the travels are. And then that was a 2008. And then I think it's a 2018 Doosan Puma 5100 with a 24-inch chuck.
A Doosan 5100?
Yeah.
That's a big one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big machine. And I love that thing. That thing, I think Sam said he locked the spindle down one time. I don't remember what he was doing. It might have been drilling with a 3-inch drill. But I mean, that thing is a beast.
3-inch.
Yeah, we've got a 3-inch inserted drill that we
Oh my gosh.
sometimes.
That
That thing's crazy.
big
Yeah.
we use is rarely a 1.5. Rarely.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we keep an inch and even in our Johnford, the smaller lathe, we keep an 1 3/4 drill and 1.5 born bars in their standard.
With the fact that you host the Lathe Lab, Luke, obviously your specialty is turning. So what would you say made you turn towards lathing? Listen to me. I'm going full mill, Billy boys. It's happening. What
Well, you
made
sound like a mill guy.
I'm telling you. What made lathing your specialty, Luke?
Well, I think turning is a little bit. People who do turning are on a whole nother level of sophistication over milling people. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding, guys.
We
I don't know. A lot of it. I love milling, and when I'm on a mill, I do it so infrequently. It's almost like I don't know, like recreation. But but I don't do any of the type of milling that you guys do. That's complicated. But turning a lot in our area, we don't really have like what you guys were saying. If there's a lot of milling in your area, like where my brother's at in California, all the shops around him are milling. In our area where we're at, I don't know of one milling shop.
really.
One.
Wow.
Like I can name 10 shops that are all turning.
Wow.
And it might be, but there's a lot of work that's broken up in different sectors based on a geographic region. Like the work in Texas is different than the work in Florida,
Right.
which is different in California. But That's a really interesting question. Why did I decide to go into turning? I don't know. You know, and it's the same way that we ended up buying a mill turn lathe versus just running the parts. If I had a part now, I'd show it to you. If I were to show it to you, say, man, that part should be run on a mill, but we did it on a lathe complete.
Yeah.
For us and what we do, we're able to make parts in one operation, even if it's complicated. Sometimes we'll double up and I'll have 30 tools
Wow.
to make that part complete. And I have one on the bench I can grab real quick and show you if you want, but I got pretty good at making parts that normally would be done on a mill, making them on a lathe.
Well, there is benefit to that too, because I've seen other people do that where it's not even round at all.
Right.
The part's rectangle, square, weird, funky shape, whatever it is, but they're able to bar feed and then just
Right.
drop parts out of the machine when they're done, versus doing it in the mill, we have to load your material, press
Have an
go.
operator.
You get one, yeah, then multiple operations. You can pretty much just let that thing run and print money as long as your tools are working right, even though it's not a lathe part whatsoever.
And isn't
Yeah, we had parts that we just got done quoting and running one that's 1.5 inch square, and it's about 1/2 inch overall length, 1.5 square, and every side of the square has a port tool where it's a spot drill tap. Normally you do that and the whole a bore through the center. Normally you would do that on a mill and it would be 6 operations, unless you have like an A axis, which we
Yeah.
don't. But I did it complete on a lathe. In that case, we were using our lathe as a mill.
Yeah.
And we actually do that a lot. There's parts that we have that, like Brad, you were saying, you farm out some of your turning work, and when the turning work comes back in, say, what do you do? Like mill it, spot drill, tap, like a cross hole,
Yep, slots. Sometimes I gotta do groove slots or
like on the side of the
Yep.
round.
Yep.
And we use our sub spindle of our machines. We'll put a stop in. I'll load the part in there, shut the door, and an operator will run it. So in a lot of ways, a lathe is like the A axis on a Haas, and we treat it as such.
Yeah.
But it was, a concise answer. The work volume that we had coming in from a lot of the ag and aerospace work that we did was all turning. But then we had another customer that was probably, I don't know, 10, 12, 15% of our volume. That's the parts that we were turning round stock into square parts. And we just got pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if you can kind of find your lane and stay in that and excel at that, that's what makes the most sense to you instead of trying to cover all of your bases. And I mean, it's pretty great to be able to set parts up in a lathe or a mill turn and everything's already there. You've got your clearances worked out. If you've got your stuff dialed, like Chris Sabatini likes to say, it just works. Whereas instead of if you've got a little bit of everything, it can be confusing sometimes. Then you might end up in a situation where you've got lathe guys and mill guys, and you're heavy on lathe work, but your mill guys aren't running lathes, or your lathe guys aren't running mills. And I've seen that at my last job. So if you can
Right.
find that specialty and stick with it, that's for the best.
Right.
Yeah. So when it comes to setting up, because I always look at parts and I'm like, man, if we had like a live tooling lathe, that would make this so much easier, or knock some operations off. But I always hear people complaining about setting up live tooling lathes, or like what you've got, twin turret with sub spindle. Like, the setup's insane on these things. It takes forever to set these things up. What do you think about that? You've probably got more experience than anybody I know setting those kind of machines up.
Yeah, when we first started, when we got our first machine in, it was plenty of 15-hour days trying to figure out just how on earth this thing works, like locating the C axis from main to sub, or like left spindle to right spindle. But the setup, what my dad said, and it's something that I follow, if I was going to run a part on a lathe and then 2 or 3 ops on a mill, you got to set it up anyways. You
Yeah.
might as well take that time and set it up on a mill turn. But what the setups can be difficult if you don't set yourself up for success. I worked at a shop doing freelance work for a while because they had some inefficiencies. They called me in through the college to go work with them. Every job that they got done setting up, whether or not it was the lathe or the mill, they would rip every tool out. Every tool, so they had a house with like a 30 or 36 carousel, whatever it has. They would pull every tool out, take the tool out of the Cat 40 holder, clean everything, put it away. On the lathe, they had a rough turn, finish turn, rough groove, finish groove, OD thread, ID thread, drill, bore, everything. All touched off, ready to go. When the job was finished, they pull them all out to maintain the tools. They would replace the screws. They would check the pocket to make sure it wasn't damaged, make sure everything was good, which is a good practice to have. But then when they went back on the setup, they'd have to put that same rough turn, rough groove, finish groove back in. What we do, there's some tools that we've had in our machine that has not changed in 5 years. 5 years, you might have to adjust your G54 or, of course, changing your tooling, but we set up our machines where the drill has been the same drill position on X0 for 5 years.
Yeah.
T0707, we know X.031 is X0. It's no longer X0,
Yeah.
but it's X031 and it'll always be that way. So the next time I'm setting up, I just swap out that drill, change my Z position, but my rough turn, finish turn, cut off, stop, everything is the same.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't want to buy those mill turns because they're worried about the setup.
Mhm.
It can be daunting. Like if you were to see some of the tool list of the job we have out there now and just look at the print, there's 100 features on the print. There's 28 tools on the job, main, sub, live tooling. For someone that doesn't know about it, they're thinking, man, I can't run that. I can't set that thing up.
Yeah. So that mentality of basically standardizing your tools and standardizing at least your tool positions is the way to go.
Yep.
And
And our tools. So our rough turns are always the same insert.
right.
Finish
Yeah,
turn is always the same insert.
No, we do the same thing. We do the exact same thing. We try mills and lathes, basically try to take tools out as little as possible. Really try to do as little setup as possible. Like even if say you say you're gonna put a part in the lathe and you have a 3/4 inch drill in there with some 1/2 inch boring bars, but in your bore needs to be, 2.5 inches, right? It's not worth changing out. I mean, yeah, you could get the job done a lot faster if you put a bigger drill in there and some bigger boring bars, but I'd rather just leave the machine set up the way it is, throw the stock in there, press go, and let it run,
Yep.
and then go do something else.
Mhm.
Get that light green.
Yeah, exactly.
Even as far as like, I mean, even if you run a large variety of work where you might be doing an 1/8 inch drill on this part and a 2 inch drill on this part, you can still at least standardize the position so that when you swap tools, at least you're not having to do, X offsets or X and Y offsets, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The hard thing for us at my last job, we had a DS30Y lathe, so it was X axis, Y axis, live tooling, subspindle. We just didn't have enough live tools. We had, I think, 2 radial, 2 axial, and then 2 that actually had multiple spindles on each station. And between the clearance problems of having to work around a 10-inch 3-jaw chuck with live tools, it was just always a bear to get everything right. And that's where, I mean, talking to Luke here, and then when we talked to Charles Sanborn a few weeks ago about his mill turn, it really makes me think, mill turns are handier for that because you just load them like a mill tool just about.
Yep. Treat it like a mill.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing crazy volume work or really small stuff, I could see where a mill turn would be handy. I'd love for us to have one.
And I would tell people, buy them used, man.
Mhm.
Buy them used. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys are in the school of thought that you want to get all brand new machines, but there's a lot of people that run a machine for 6 months and it sits there.
Mhm.
They don't need it anymore. They put it for sale, man. I've seen some Doosan TTs, brand new. I don't know what they are, over 300, but used I've seen for 125, and they're great machines.
Yeah. Yeah.
have to keep that in mind.
But I always had that question in the back of my mind, like, was this thing a lemon? Why are they
Right.
getting rid of it?
Sure.
know.
They've used it for 3 months and they're selling it?
Do you guys
Brand
buy all
new.
brand new?
Typically, yeah.
I don't.
We-
I've never bought a new
Not
machine.
here.
We do, but typically we're buying mills that we want around for 15 years. So
Right.
we get it new and we make our money back on it.
I've seen a lot of your content on your Instagram, but it's hard to kind of put what machine with it. What machine is that's featured on your page? Is there
That's probably my horizontal. So the spindle's coming from the side. It's got the big
Okay.
tombstones that rotate.
and then so is it what rotates?
The tombstone.
That's what I was gonna ask about. That's the one where you open the door, you flip the tombstone, you shut the door,
Yep.
and then went back. Okay, I gotcha.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's 6 tombstones and there's 6 pallets, so I can load up 6 pallets automated.
Yeah, I didn't know. I know the horizontal spindle, but I didn't know if I was remembering correctly that was like the gray door that was kind of
Yep.
octagonal, like a partial octagon door,
Yep. That's that.
or what? You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That looks like a cool ass machine. I've never been on a horizontal
They're
or a vertical lathe.
vertical lathe. I don't even know what I do with that.
Right.
But yeah, the horizontals are great. You got great chippy vac too. That part's sideways, so you're not worried about chips filling up in pockets. They're great machines. I'm actually thinking about convincing Pat here to take my VF2 and I'm gonna replace it with a horizontal.
So with the horizontal though, and I don't want to get too far off topic, Pat, if I am.
We're good.
With the
Go-
horizontal though, can you run low volume work the same well, you got the 6 pallets, so that's designed for high volume, but is it as easy to run low volume there as it is for your vertical?
I wouldn't say it's as easy. The setup and programming is a little bit more, but it's not bad. The way I have it set up is I have 6 different pallets, so each one is different. So for me, it's easy just to go from setup to setup. I can
You know, each pallet have like a G54, G55.
each pallet I built all the pallets and I use G54 for all of them, so they all go off of that.
Okay. So how do you differentiate between, like, you got 6 pallets? Can you run one part on one, another
Yep.
part on another? But you got to reteach everything for each time because they're all G54, right?
When I program, I bring the part to where it's supposed to be on the tombstone, and until just recently, I started adding probing, so now I can probe it.
Right. I get it. Yeah, that stuff's way out of my wheelhouse, but it's cool as shit.
We're actually about to go down that road here soon because we have a feeler horizontal mill here, and I think maybe next week we're gonna finally get our tombstone built for it. And
Is that a pallet? Is it just 2 tombstones?
it's just 2, yeah. It's not a pallet pool. But we're gonna try to build the tombstone kind of like what you've got, Brad, where everything is machined to the model, to the center rotation.
Yep.
And just try to make things easier that way, because especially since that machine doesn't have any kind of probing or anything. I mean, we're using edge finders, and indicators. So heaven forbid.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Brad setup is the way to go.
absolutely.
I would love. We've talked about doing that. Like, we don't see a horizontal in our near future by any means, but in the future, because we do so much random job shop work in low quantity,
hmm
you don't traditionally think, oh, well, you need a horizontal. But whenever you set it up like how Brad's got it, where you've got a horizontal with a different setup on each pallet.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I need two or three self-centering vices in line with each other for a long part, I just call that pallet up, throw the part in there, and go.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's have everything modeled so it's in your workspace already. You put the part where it needs to be, and then the probe can pick up the actual location.
I always thought
go.
I always thought it would be cool in a vertical mill with a 2-stage pallet changer if you could do vices on one and then a 4th axis on the other.
Yeah.
That way you never have to actually swap them. That was always something I hated doing at my last job, was pulling vices off and then putting a 4th axis on, having to line it up, indicated the end.
More actions on a pallet?
In some cases, I think you can. It takes a little finagling with the wiring, but I think it can be done.
If you've got have you seen the 2 pallet changer for the mills?
We had one. I forget the name of them, but it had 2 little pallets that you like shift one up. It was pneumatic where you unlock in the air, you pull it out, move it over, move the next one in.
Right. So yeah, and I believe they've got them where it just does it automatically with an M code or something as well. But you can have long enough wiring for your fourth axis, long enough wiring and airline for your fourth axis or hydraulic, whichever you have, to where it can change in and out. I've seen somebody do it before, anyways.
That's cool.
Or you could have it where, like you're saying, Pat, you could do exactly that. Have one with a whole bunch. The whole table is vices lined up, indicated together, ready to go. So no matter what you've got to do, you're pretty much there if it can fit in a vise. Then the other one with the fourth axis on it, and I would do like fourth axis with a whole fixture table.
Yeah,
So it
exactly.
would have holes all over it. So if you're if you've got a funky part that needs fixtured to a table, you're ready to go.
Mhm.
You can file that pallet up, or if you got a fourth axis part, and then slide that out, slide your vices in, and you're ready to go with pretty much any other part.
And that's why I want to swap my VF2 for a horizontal. My horizontal lab now isn't true fourth axis. It prepositions in 1 degree increments. So I want to find just a standard horizontal with the 2 stations, and one would be dedicated to kind of like a fourth axis style thing, and then the other would be vices.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that
You
would
would
be
put the vices on the tombstone?
Yep.
So the vices would go
That's
vertical.
so bizarre to me. That is so bizarre to think about. It's cool though.
Yeah.
But it's,
Yeah.
Right.
It's a little hard to load sometimes. Like I got my parts that I'm rolling right now are pretty heavy, and I gotta push them up. And sometimes if you don't have your Allen wrench or whatever you're gonna mount it with in, like I'll put my forehead on it and I'll like reach for it, try to hold it in
Really?
place. Yeah.
Yeah.
You always got to make
That's
sure
fun.
you have something within reach because you're trying to hold up a big block so it doesn't fall back at you.
And is that the part that Pat was saying we can't talk much about?
Yeah, I can't show it, but yeah, I think the blocks they're 3.5 by 14 by like 17 aluminum.
Wow.
Mm.
They're sitting on Sarah strips on the bottom, and then I push it up, and then I got knife edge clamps. So I got 2 screws I got to screw in to get the knife edges to grab. So I got to make sure I hold it there. Sometimes I just put my forehead on it, and
Do you have the room there to do like a small jib crane or a sky hook?
yeah, I've
You
thought
thought
about
about
it.
that?
Yeah,
Okay. Are you going to?
probably at some
Yeah.
point.
I will say the sky hooks are pretty legit.
Yeah, especially
mean,
when I got 6 pallets, and I have 2 extra pallet tables. So I actually have one out of the machine, and I have it set up so I can swap them if I need to. So I have 8 pallets,
Yeah.
but it's a pain to
Um,
load it.
Yeah. And now, well, I guess you'd probably want to do a jib crane then for the added ability. I was thinking for loading material.
Yeah.
Like sky hook for loading material.
Yeah.
But you probably want a jib crane for changing out those pallets because they're pretty heavy. But or the tombstones. But no, those sky hooks are pretty awesome. I've got at 2 of our mills and then at our CMM, I've got bases mounted to the concrete there, and then I can take a sky hook and swap it between which one I need.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got one that will share between mills and then one that stays at the CMM for the big parts. But it's super adjustable is what I really like about it. It can hold, but we had ours custom made because I needed certain dimensions. So they can hold 450 pounds, but their standard one can hold 500 pounds. It can lift
How
500.
big are the parts that you move?
It varies. I mean, our biggest, let's see, well, shit, I don't even know. We've had some that we have to load by forklift because they're too heavy for the jib cranes or for the sky hooks, the small
Into
mill,
the machine or onto the CMM?
into the machine.
Wow.
But I mean, even some going on the CMM, you're talking 300-pound parts, 24 inches in diameter, that sort of thing. So, I mean, like I
my
said, we got a
God.
24-inch chuck on our big lathe. So it's not uncommon for us to be holding like a 20.5-inch fit plus 1 minus nothing. So throwing that on the CMM to check it, especially like an internal fit, a bore, right? Like a shallow bore. Checking that on the machine is a pain. So we honestly, what we do is by checking it on the machine, we're using 24-inch calipers, digital calipers, and just guess.
Right.
It's skill at that point. It's not relying on the true accuracy of that measuring instrument. It's your skill knowing what you're going to end up at based on using those things over and over and comparing it to the CMM and what you get once you take it out of the machine.
And how
So-
many of those would you make? One?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, the quantities vary, but it's rare we make more than 10 parts
Wow.
in order. And if we do make a higher quantity, they're pretty simple parts typically.
We just got an order in yesterday for 45,000 pieces,
It's
and they
How
want
do you-
45
How do you count them?
45,000 a month. What?
How do you
You
count them?
little parts counter,
Yeah.
and they're accurate within it's not even that. The part is that big.
Yeah.
It's small, man. And they
It's-
want, I don't know if we'll get it, but they want 45,000 a month every month. We probably won't. The only reason we got the orders because their supplier fucked them over and they need them now.
Yeah.
But our price is a little high. They'll probably offshore it or send it to a screw machine house.
Do you have Swiss machines?
Yeah, we got a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them we actually bought used a couple of years ago. 60% off
Nice.
brand new price.
Damn.
It did need a sub spindle, but that was $4,000.
Yeah.
Is that all? Wow. Huh. Okay.
60% off brand new.
That's sweet, man.
I know.
Dang.
I'd like to play with Swiss machines. They seem pretty cool.
They're fun. They're hard though.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
You know, some of the work that we did, speaking of S7, what you were mentioning before, we made a couple firing pins that one of them was 11 inches long, and we went from the tip of it was 170 thousandths for 8 of the 11 inches.
Yeah.
So did you imagine turning that?
Golly.
No.
Not on anything but a Swiss.
The run out on the first part we made was 80 thousandths. You could just see it.
Yeah. Do you so do you turn that in sections?
No, one shot.
Really?
Yep.
Damn, how do you hold that?
The part
Yeah.
on
Do
the
you just
Swiss.
put a hang?
On
Or
the-
are you
on the Swiss, so sliding headstock.
Yeah.
So we have our guide bushing up front here, and behind it, 13 inches is the collet.
okay?
So the collet pushes the material through. So our workpiece is you can't see, but our workpiece is always like this, right here, and then the part moves forward.
Right.
So the only machine you could run that on would be a Swiss, or technically speaking, a sliding headstock.
So as that dimension is getting smaller, right? As that diameter is getting smaller as you're turning it, how does it continue to be supported?
Well, it doesn't have to be supported for certain lengths, but for that length, we come up with the sub spindle and grab it, and it moves with it.
Okay. Okay. So you're supporting the end of it and then
Yep.
almost basically turning between.
Between
Spindle.
tenors, yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, yeah, between
Yeah.
spindles.
Yeah. That makes sense.
That was one of the hardest I've ever seen on a Swiss.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want any business in that.
It was, we won't do it again. It was horrible.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
It-
Yeah. No.
Luke?
I would like.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Cam. No, go ahead, Cam.
I would
All right.
go.
So, Luke, we basically just have 2 more things to cover, and then we can wrap up. One of our
Before
friends.
we start, do you mind if I use the washroom real quick again?
Sure.
I know. I apologize.
It's okay.
Go let your dribbles out.
Yeah, we'll get this wrapped up. I'm going to ask him this question that John asked, and then I did ask Luke if he wanted to do a tip of the day thing.
Mhm.
And I'll be curious. I don't know if he picked one out or not yet, but we'll see. Then we'll get it wrapped up. So funny how different everybody's world is, man.
Yeah. When I was at that open house, Ian sent me the address and I looked it up because I was going to go down and check his shop out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was called Precision Turning. So I was like, what the fuck? It's only turning? That's it?
Right.
That's weird. You know? I mean, obviously, they're putting out parts that have more than just turn features on them. But
Mm-hmm.
I had never seen a shop that only did turning.
Right. That's crazy to me. But now that I think about it, I do know of a shop in Knoxville that's that way. It's called Swiss Tech. They only
Yeah.
have Swiss lathes.
I mean, a Swiss shop makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. But all
Yeah.
turning is something else.
Yeah.
All right, Luke.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Pat, you want to get in that question?
Yes. So John from the Shop Incorporated asked, what's the best way to learn subspindle and dual turret lathe programming?
Best way to learn that, I would have to say, if they're looking, you got to approach it from two different ways. If they're looking to buy a machine and that's their goal, like I want to have this capacity in my shop, they got to buy it and work on it. That's what we did. We bought it and we worked with the service techs or the application support to get help on it. And there was a couple people that I know that already had them.
Mhm.
That they spent a couple of years already through that grinding point of finding out how it worked. So if this person, if John is asking because he wants to have that capacity in his shop, you got to get a machine, and it's going to take a little bit of getting used to. As bad of an answer as that might be, that's where I was at for a while, and luckily I had a few contacts that I could reach out to at Ellison. Well, at the time it was 520 Machinery, but then Ellison, and I would be texting and calling these people constantly. And luckily I knew a couple of them on a personal basis.
Mhm.
And if it's just something that they want to learn just because, like, hey, this is just something I want to learn because I want to learn it, it's actually not that difficult. What made it click for me one day was you look at your main spindle, right? You got your main spindle with your tooling coming down. Just imagine that whole thing flipped over and treat it like a separate machine. That's
Makes
the
sense.
way that a lot of times I teach my students when it comes to people that are going from mills to lathes or lathes to mills that come into the vocational program, to try to get them to understand it. I've had people that have never been on a CNC lathe, but 10 years on a mill, dude, they were scared.
Mhm.
They were nervous. They even hit start. They didn't know what to do. So I told them, imagine your vertical mill flipping on the side. And it's the same axes that you're going to be working with, your Z, your X, and your Y.
Oh,
And
yeah,
that,
didn't anyone tell me about that about turning?
Yeah, right.
Right.
Brad, you come take your course.
Yeah, turn a machine on its side. And for people that are nervous about getting that sub-spindle capability, approach it first as a whole separate machine. Approach that sub-spindle, set that up like it's a whole separate machine. We do setups where we just use our sub-spindle. That's it.
Yeah.
We don't even use the main for like a chucking job. We'll just use the sub-spindle. And say it has a 3-jaw chuck in there, and I have a part that I need to do a cross hole or a mill on. I treat that sub-spindle like a mill or just a separate lathe. And it's no more complicated than that. Once you get the main side done, which anyone on a lathe can go to a sub-spindle mill turn machine and work on that no problem. But they get nervous about the sub. It's a separate path. Treat it as a separate machine.
That makes sense.
Okay.
That's a good way to break it down because when you walk up to like a twin turret sub-spindle lathe, you look at it like, what the hell is going on?
Right.
Yeah, it looks like a whole different beast when you first walk up to it, but whenever you put it like that, it
And we
switches it up.
associate top turret with main spindle, bottom turret with sub spindle. And
Right.
that's the way when we're bringing someone on to train, or when I talk to students at the school about it, that's how we treat it. Until you can get more advanced and you can have both turrets work on the main or both on the sub, or even your sub spindle moving to the main to help out the machining there through support. Treat it as top turret goes to the main, lower turret goes to the sub. It's a separate machine, separate program, separate path. And that'll help break it down instead of walking up just not knowing what's going on.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Essentially embrace the suck and learn by doing.
100%.
Nice. Okay.
No better way.
And I can agree with that because going from only doing 2-axis turning at my last job to when we got the 5-tool sub-spindle lathe, it was a lot of the same thing. It was just you had to embrace the frustration of, maybe this setup didn't quite work out. You gotta tweak it. You gotta change it, whatever. Now you know for next time.
Yep. And that's a lot of it. And if for you mill guys, if you were to have to go get a job, God forbid, have to go get a job in a shop tomorrow running all lathes, you'd make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, I made my turn center work. It was, I tell you, like, I ran a lot of manual machines where your tools on your side So then when I started running that turning center and it was on that backside,
Yeah.
I was like trying to stand over, like looking at it.
Right.
What's going on here? But it's the
Right.
same thing. It's no different. It was just visually, I was so used to hand turning stuff and everything on my side. So then looking at that, it was like, God, this is just weird.
Right. Yeah, it can be something to get used to. When I go on a mill now, the rare times that I am, I feel like a fish out of water.
Are you there
Yeah.
sticking your fingers up like this, like XYZ?
Yep. I have to always think like X positive, negative, which is why. Right.
And then is it the spindle that's moving or is it the table that's moving? Which one?
Right.
Yeah.
And for you guys, it's second nature.
The horizontal throws me off sometimes though. Just like I know which way it's going, but sometimes I'll hit X or Y and it's like, nope, I don't want to go that way. I need the other one to move.
Right.
But I have to like where it's at, I gotta kinda like turn and look at it. It's like, okay, that's X, that's Y, that's all right.
Well, Luke, do you have a tip of the day you want to give us?
So, well, someone said, lock the doors so no freaks come in, right?
Yeah, that was Brad.
Wasn't that his last tip of the day?
Yeah, I told Luke about it
Oh,
the other day
okay.
when we were chatting. Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, how'd you hear that already?
So mine will be kind of similar, where the tip of the day wouldn't really be applied actually to machining practice. What I tell my students, and a lot of my content, and for the foreseeable future of my career, is going to be geared towards helping others in our industry that maybe people my age didn't get when they started.
Yeah.
And I would say, what I tell my students, I'm telling my kids the same thing. Attitude beats aptitude 100% of the time. I've had over 450 students. I've hired probably close to 20 people in the past decade. I've worked at like on freelance work or contract work at other shops, about 10 different shops. I've been at a couple different shops, getting a paycheck to pay my mortgage. I've been around in this field. The people that always do the best are the ones with a good attitude. And I don't mean just a good attitude like, oh, hey, trying to kiss up to the boss. What I mean is, I'm going to get the job done. So, like what Brad was talking about a moment ago, like with the horizontal. You never worked on a horizontal before that, right?
Oh yeah. Years ago.
Yeah.
Yep. But I
So,
was just thrown into it. It was nobody showed me anything on it.
there you go. And like what you were talking about in the shop that you were at right out of the Marine Corps, you went in, they didn't train you shit. You didn't complain, you didn't whine, you jumped up, you grabbed yourself by your bootstraps, and you made it work for you. But that's the attitude. And the same thing, Pat, you weren't happy at your last shop, right?
Right.
You
Right.
moved, and I don't want to say anything bad about them, but you moved on to greener pastures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the attitude will beat aptitude every time. There's plenty of people I know that I've worked with, man, when it comes to math, when it comes to machining, they are great, dude. They are excellent. Talking to them is a drain on my soul. It's just everything about them is negative. Negative this, negative that. Nothing is good. Everything is bad. They've got the aptitude of a 140 IQ, but they're stuck in the bottom of a shop, and they will be forever. They're never going to move up in a shop. They're never going to be asked to be to host a podcast how you guys do. They're never going to be asked to make videos because their freaking attitude is horrible.
Yep.
So in summary, attitude beats aptitude. I would say 100% of the time.
I love it.
So have a good attitude, especially for the young people going into the field.
Yep. That's great.
It's a damn good tip.
Yep. All right. Luke, thank you so much for joining us today, bud.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, man. I've watched you guys for a while. I've never been on a podcast. It was super cool. It was awesome talking to you guys and learning about what you do. So thank you.
You bet, man. Be sure to check out Luke, Crusader Machining on Instagram, also on YouTube, and be sure to check out the Lathe Lab, his series for Practical Machinists. That's all for this episode of the Impractical Machinist podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on Spotify or the Practical Machinist YouTube channel so you never miss an episode.
Again, we'd appreciate that 5-star rating wherever you're listening or watching. Drop a comment below of what you learned from us or to share your own experience, and spread the word. Let your fellow machinists know.
If you have any follow-up questions, you can DM us on Instagram, the Practical Machinist Forum, or on the Discord that's located in our Instagram bio. Also check out our Instagrams at JavaShopperTN, Machining is Cool, and Marvel Machining, and make sure you follow Luke Crusader Machining on Instagram.